So if you've been looking for a nice minimalistic RGB case where it doesn't overpower the rest of the case, gives you a nice modular design, easy to work with cable management, and a price that doesn't break the bank, then we might have a fair contender here. Because today we're going to review the Versa C21 RGB case from Thermaltake. So let's get into it. Hey, what's up guys? My name is JD from JDTechGear and welcome back to the channel where we discuss PC, passion, setup design, tech reviews, and unboxing. So if you want to see more like that, consider subscribing and become part of the Tech Junkie family. So today we are reviewing the Versa C21 case from Thermaltake. First, let's talk about those RGB lights, because the RGB lights actually look very nice on this case. They're nice little thin strips on the sides and also on the inside of the indents on the top of the case. This makes it nice and minimalistic and just the right amount of RGB lighting to kind of give it a little nice accent. They connect via a 4-pin connector and they can connect into a motherboard if you decide to do so. Whether the motherboard can control the RGB lights or not, I don't know, but it is a standard 4-pin connector. Now it does have several coloring modes. It has a cycle mode and also has a breathing mode and a blinking mode and a solid color mode. The colors include red, green, blue, purple, cyan, yellow, and white. Also it comes with a side window panel with nice acrylic that doesn't scratch too easily. And when I say it doesn't scratch too easily, it means like, okay, you can brush your nail against it and it's not going to scratch it. Whereas my other case, like the Enthoo Pro from Fantex, where if you just drag your nail across the acrylic, it instantly scratches. So yeah, it's still going to scratch. Don't get me wrong, it's acrylic, but it's a nice enough acrylic that you don't have to worry too much about it and it's not as sensitive. So moving on to the front I/O panel, we have two 3.0 USB ports, two USB 2.0 ports, a standard headphone and auxiliary jack, and also a fan controller and an LED controller. Now you can control up to 4 fans with the fan controller, so I think it's a pretty nice addition with the case, and you can control between a high, low, and off setting. The off setting's in the middle, and the low setting's below, and the high setting on top. So as far as the fan placement goes and the amount of clearance you have, you can put a 120mm in the back, two 120mm on the top, and two 120mm in the front. Now it claims you can do two 140mm fans in the front, but you can only do one. So in order to install the 140mm fan, you can only do so on top. On the bottom section, there's a strip of metal that runs along the bottom, which interferes with the fan lining up with the holes on the front of the case. So the configuration's a little weird. You can do either two 120mm or one 140 and one 120 below. So as far as the radiator placement goes, you can put one on the front, a 120 on the back, and a 240 on the top. Now the thing with a 240 on the top is that it's in its own section. It's kind of like in its own area. It's covered, I don't know, it's kind of raised and away from the inside of the case, which is really nice because it actually clears up the inside of the case and gives you as much clearance to work with. But if you're working with a radiator that has angles or edges that don't really conform with the rectangular shape, you might run into problems with clearance issues. Moving on, let's talk about taking the panels apart. Now the nice thing about the side and the front panels is that they have the rubber washer that usually is attached to the screw is already pre-installed on the panel itself, so you won't have to worry about losing any rubber washers when you pull off the screws to undo the side panels. Now when you take off the front panel, you will have to undo the 4-pin connector to detach the RGB lights that's connected to the rest of the case, but that's no problem. Now there's no sound foam or dust filters or anything inside the case except for the bottom of the case where the PSU goes. Now when you're taking off the top panel, it's not as easy because all the front I/O cables are attached to it. But you can get away with just swiveling it over and you can access it just nicely from there, but you can't take it completely off without detaching everything. So that might be something you have to think about a step or two ahead when deciding to build with this PC case. That's one of the gripes with me, but not a major one because it's still accessible. Now as far as any storage bays go, you have two 2.5-inch SSD bays in the front and one in the back. And you also have two 3.5-inch hard drive bays in the back. which is pretty nice because they're all detachable. And also in the back there, in the 3.5-inch hard drive bay, you will also find the pack of screws for all the mounting motherboard screws and everything else, and the fan screws, and also 3 zip ties, which are kind of cheap and crappy, so I don't even know why they even included those, but yeah, they're there. Now talking about the inside of the case is amazingly wide open. Now having that top portion that sticks up like as it does, so it can take everything out of the way and free up as much clearance and room inside, is absolutely amazing. Now you have as much clearance to do whatever you want inside, so I feel like this case was built with water cooling in mind, and you don't have a bunch of hard drive bays in the front either. So airflow is not going to be a problem either, because you're just going to have direct airflow going right through the case. And you also have 2 optical drive bays in the front, which are also detachable, so in case you want to free up even more clearance, you can do that as well. Now a problem with a lot of cases today is that they don't give you much clearance in the back, and you have to fight with the large motherboard cable and a whole bunch of other cables to actually fit the back panel back on. It gives you plenty of clearance, and the way I tested this out was I have a non-modular PSU and I just bunched all the cables together and it still fit on perfectly fine. So this really tested out how many cables it could really stack around each other to fit and cram into the back panel. So this gives you plenty of options for cable management and a lot of room to work with, which I think is absolutely amazing. And you have plenty of cable holes to work with inside the frame. Yeah, so this is a case designed for showing off, I believe. So this is definitely a very pretty case and very aesthetically pleasing, and will go with a lot of builds and give you a lot of options. So that's where this case really excels. So there is no PSU cover in this case as well, because they also have a product with an RGB PSU, which actually is optimized to work face up instead of face down. So I believe it's there to kind of promote that idea, and also it's there to show off the PSU. And there's also no rubber grommets, which is also another gripe of mine. I feel like they should be standard with most cases. I mean, it's just a rubber grommet, and it would be nice to have that because it kind of protects your cables, and it also helps hide them at the same time and cleans up the look a lot. So I really like that, and unfortunately it's not in this case. But still, everything else about this case will still work perfectly fine for cable management, so it kind of makes up for it. So where does this case really excel? Well, it's very aesthetically pleasing, cable management is almost a dream, and it also has a very solid build quality, and it's very easy to work with. You don't have to build a PC to know how this thing works really, because it has plenty of clearance inside of it. Also, airflow is going to be really nice inside, so cooling it is not going to be a problem. The Rgb lights, of course, are very nice. Now, I'm not so into the RGB craze, but with that being said, having some RGBs is nice because it gives you kind of the availability to work with different color schemes, and also gives you the option to change your color scheme in case you're getting tired of your current one. So another nice thing about this case is that it doesn't only give you the regular layout for an ATX motherboard, but also a micro and a mini ATX motherboard. So this case gives you a lot of options to work with, it gives you a lot of availability, and it comes in around $65 to $70 depending on where you're buying it from. So it's an easy to work with price range, and it doesn't break the bank. Now I would highly recommend this case. I'm not going to give it the full TSG certification because there's some flaws that I think should be addressed, like the top panel not being able to come off, and also no rubber grommets. Otherwise you're getting a great case for the price that it's being offered at. So that's how I generally feel about this case, and I'm going to be using it for the next Ryzen build, so you guys should stay tuned for that within the next upcoming month or so. So if you guys haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel if you want to see more PC passion, setup design, tech reviews, and unboxings, and becoming part of the Tech Junkie family. So I want to thank you guys for watching the video, and I'll catch you guys next time.